12-hour difference, I guess. Can you sort of
Yeah, yeah.
can you
No
sort of tell
worries.
people where you're from and you're in Australia now and what you're doing traveling around the world? Can you sort of for people? I'll put the video up right away, right at the start, but let people know where you're from and what you've been doing.
Okay, so my name is Robin Alderslowe. I am from Dumfries and Galloway in Scotland, and I've been traveling the world for the last 6 months. So I started on the 19th of January. I went to India, and a lot of the idea was obviously, I'm young. I wanted to travel, wanted to learn more about the world, but I went there with my outfit, with my bagpipes. I wanted to get my culture out there and film it and see what videos I could land that would resonate with an audience really, that would promote my culture in these places.
Yeah, and obviously the ones that are, I think you could tell me obviously, but I think that have hit the largest are ones where you're in very densely populated places in India and on buses and in streets and stuff where you're playing the bagpipes. And I think the reason I'm going to go out on a limb here, and based on where I live here, Robin, in Canada, the reason why it has resonated so well in Western countries is because a lot of people from those countries that you've been traveling to bring their culture to our countries, and it has been in an overwhelming amount of people in which that has been brought. So people are interested to see how that's been received in other countries. So what has the reception been like for you walking around in a kilt playing bagpipes, just right in people's faces?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's pretty mental, right? A lot of people are obviously a bit shocked by it and can't really figure out exactly what to make of what they're looking at. I think a lot of people take the confused faces of Indians as being very angry when actually they were quite delighted to have me there, and usually they just look quite confused about what the hell is going on right now because it's such an absurd situation. So my very first day in India, I had very little idea of why I was there, what I wanted to do, but I was wearing my kit and I did have my bagpipes when I was there. I got on a train and the people on that train saw me in my kit. They saw me hold my bagpipes, and they were so fascinated. I was with some two Indian friends and one Korean friend who lives back in Scotland, and they they sort of spoke with the Indian friends and they explained to them what I was and what I do, and they started chanting. I wish I got it on camera, but they started chanting for me to play. So actually, the first time I played on a train was because the Indians were asking me to play. Which most people don't know because it's not
Mm-hmm.
really communicated through my videos, even though I've sort of spoken about it since. And I didn't post that video for more than a month because my bagpipes, because I just travelled from Scotland to India, I just got there, massive temperature change, and I didn't have time to tune. Really, they were they were really out of tune. And then I ended up posting the video when I was going back and editing other videos when I was in Korea, and I just thought that this video is like way too good not to post. And I posted and it got over 1 million views in a really short period of time. And then I later made the decision when I was actually in the USA to go back to India and like do much more videos like that and just embrace the sort of craziness of that content and see where pushing that to much more extremes could take me.
Mm-hmm. And I hate when I see people. I know people are um taking your videos. Personally, I hate when people do that to me, but your videos have obviously exploded across more than that, across more than just a couple million views when you consider all the places that have stolen your videos. So a lot of people, and I'm sure you've noticed this already, are going to assume that you are doing these videos to make sort of a political message, an anti-mass migration message, which is 100% what I think a lot of people who are conservative-leaning people in the Western Hemisphere are going to take it as. Was that your intention, or did you as you mentioned earlier, you just wanted to see what kind of content would gain traction without any intention behind it? Tell people if there's any sort of meaning behind what you're doing there.
Yeah, so there definitely is a meaning behind it. What I would say is I don't mean to get in, certainly publicly, too much on my feelings about a whole range of complex issues, including immigration, is one that I think the most important thing when it comes to our understanding of what it means for an immigrant to come to our country and whether that's good or bad is our culture and how they're integrating to our culture. And what's really important and really upsetting is the way that in the West we are not being proud and being happy of our own culture. We're saying things like white people don't have any culture. And to me, the most core thing at the root of fixing immigration is fixing our own attitudes towards our own self, our heritage, our history, and our culture. And that's the main thing which I'm trying to communicate. It's about us as Europeans or ethnic Europeans or whatever. Can we be proud of our past, and how can we say that? I think there was a. Have you seen the? I don't know if you've seen the Stephen Fry episode on trigonometry when he was asked about what it means to be British. He said a whole series of things, but he finished with an extensive explanation that was about 10 minutes long of what it means to be British, with a really sort of interesting and unusually inspiring statement to me, which was that to he stated that British and Western values are under threat, and in order to keep specifically British values under threat, it means acting and speaking in a very un-British way. That's what I was really thinking about when I came back to
Mm.
India and I did those videos where I was shouting at the camera, was really what's the very un-British way that we probably need to be speaking so that we can keep that culture protected. Does
Y-
that answer your question?
Yeah, for sure. Do you mind me asking how old you are?
I'm 20.
Yeah, I think it's very
Yeah.
brave of you to to set yourself up for this at this age because as I'm sure you've thought about, your words are going to be out there and your videos are going to be out there forever. What's interesting based on what you said was I'm much older than you, about 15 years older than you, and when I was even in high school, I don't know what you guys call it in Scotland, when I was like in 10th year, I believe you might call it.
No,
Um,
in Scotland, we usually the broad term is secondary, but
Secondary school,
we have
okay.
schools that are either high school, secondary, or my one was called an academy. So they're all kind
Okay.
of similar.
So
It's England where they say 10th year and things.
okay.
Yeah.
So even when I was that age, people were saying white people don't have any culture. That's what the thing to say was, blame old white people for everything. So it's wild that it's still a thing that people are saying. Now I wanted to ask you what I have so many questions about being Scottish, by the way. I wanted to ask you, what do you see as being Scottish, particularly? Because I do want to get into the differences between Scots and English people, and how that relationship works. I know you guys are close, but what does it mean to you? Like in like a few descriptors of what you want Scotland to look like, and for the people out there, this isn't a race thing. This is a Scottish thing. People will say stuff.
Which is
Jeez.
inherently tied to race.
Yes.
But yeah, so I mean, this is something I do like to talk about because I talk about it quite a lot. I think, especially so, there's an elderly man who's a sort of a mentor of mine. We use the word shenike, which basically, I think the best explanation of shenike is a person who maintains culture in the way that it was intended to be passed down rather than through literature or there's a historical term that they use here, but like the second version of it rather than basically first hand. They've received the information firsthand. So he
Mm.
takes all these stories down. He wears traditional attire and does traditional dances, plays music absolutely in the most traditional way as to the way that was passed to him. And he has the most experience, I would say, probably out of any person in Scotland of actual first-hand Gaelic speaking culture from elderly people because he travelled around Scotland since he was a young teenager. He was about 15 or 16 speaking to these people. And he has experienced so much oppression in many senses, probably more racism than most ethnic minorities in Scotland I've witnessed for trying to express that from oppressive um, like forms of administration in Scotland that are mostly ruled by English people. So there's actually a lot of ways, despite the sort of reformation and revival of culture that we're seeing in Scotland, that actually our culture is still being diminished
Mm.
and our culture is continually becoming more anglicized. Even the way which I'm speaking to you right now is more anglicized than my parents and far more anglicized than my grandparents, because that's the way that our culture is shifting. That's the way that our education system is pushing us, even though
So
we
sorry
have
to
aspects
interrupt.
that promote that. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sorry to interrupt. So what you're saying is that there's even a push for you guys to have less of Scottish accents, is what you're saying.
Oh, to completely. If you
Please
compare the way
explain
that,
that. That's insane.
yeah.
That's insane.
um, y- I mean, obviously, it's hard for me to say exactly because I can't say what the experience is from people with different schools, but it's something I can see a lot in my compatriots in university. I think it's a push that happens in most countries around the world now, where people are maybe in England, they're becoming more American in senses. Americans, I've noticed, they're using some things that are less American and more English. But I think in Scotland it's stronger because we have a general attitude that's maybe more comparable to somewhere like Uganda, even because we say, I think our attitude of Scottish culture is we want to avoid the shortbread tin idea, which is like the old man wearing a kilt
We
with
have
his
those.
with his foot up on a chair singing Scottish soldier, right? Is this kind of old Scottish, doesn't develop, doesn't adapt to modern identities of entrepreneurship, like the shiny London, the Shard, the future finance is I suppose an opposite image to that shortbread tin idea. So,
And
so that's something they want to push by. And people that do speak in stronger accents in Scotland are almost always the most economically marginalised people, right? They're the
mm.
people that are struggling the most. They're the poorest. They're working class. They have the strongest accents. It's better sound the most Scottish as well.
Yeah, I don't think anyone has a problem with Scottish or Irish or English accents. The annoyance comes when they're not actually pronouncing a word correctly. I don't care if there's an accent, a Scottish accent, like the Australians. They just don't know how to speak at all. You're there right now. You know that. Um,
Even that idea of how to speak properly, where that comes from is like this kind of there's becoming a gradual global sense of how English should be spoken, which is mostly driven by somewhere between Americans and RP English. But if you look at the way that maybe an elderly person, for example, an old man who taught me bagpipes for several years, whose name was Nick, the way that he speaks to me is very, very clear. I reckon to you
mhm.
it'd be very unclear, and you might consider it not a correct way. But he
No, let me
speaks.
be clear. Like,
Okay.
I don't speak however you want. The Australians, when they add an er to the end, I'm not saying make it law, Robin. Okay, I'm just joking around here. I think it's very brave that it's gotten to this point. Now, maybe not even brave. It's interesting and it's good that it's gotten to the point at your age and amongst your group of friends that you guys have such a strong sense of don't tell me what to do, that it's wonderful because this is, we'll throw the boomers under the bus here. This is how we got here, which by not standing up for anything really. So tell me how you and your friends that you know have come to this understanding of your cultural and your national history and where you want it to be, and in conjunction with tying that to things like immigration and world history. Are you guys big, like, did you play the real-time strategy games? Do you guys talk about books? Do you guys watch old movies? Like, how do you and your friends come up with that basis for which you think that you need to protect it?
Okay. I'll try and not go on a tangent for this one.
Tange away,
Uh,
young man.
Cleanliness in Scotland, our attitude towards keeping our environment clean
Mm-hmm.
is quite strict. Okay, in Scotland we have really amazing right to roam and wild camping legislation. You can pretty much camp anywhere. You can walk anywhere, and it's really great for people like me who like to cycle, who like to hike, who like to ramble and just camp out sometimes. We also have bothies, which are shared, basically community sheds that you can sleep in when you're traveling through the mountains.
I
So
see.
it's really, really available for people to explore. But we also have quite strict rules that are ingrained, I would say, very much in our culture, and have been in our culture for a very long time, I imagine, generally. And so much so that when people come here, even from other European countries, they're very surprised by how strict they are. I have a friend who is also an influencer. His name is the Outdoor Ginger Channel. He's Danish. He travels and camps everywhere. And when he came to Scotland, he took a massive culture shock because there was a massive lashback after he was publicly found to have cut down a tree and not to have covered up his fire properly.
Hmm.
Because that was just something that's in our culture, it's in our laws, that we treat very seriously. When you come here, you can go wherever you want, but you have to treat things very cautiously. Now, in India, if you see their attitude towards cleanliness, the way that so many people in India just casually throw out rubbish, that they are very dirty, that they defecate in public, if they tried to come to Scotland, there'd be a huge amount of adapting that they have to do. Unfortunately, in Scotland, contrary to what a lot of people say, I think, when you look at places like Canada, when you look at places like London, in Scotland, we don't have that much immigration. We do have it, and we do have it in some places. In most places, I would say, like in Edinburgh, where I've lived for the last year and a half, before I started traveling, I was staying in Edinburgh. Most immigrants come there and they find there's few enough of them that they integrate. And I think most people in those environments, like if Indians come there, they quite quickly adapt and they learn how to change their way of doing things to the Scottish way of doing things. They're not defecating in public. They're abiding to traffic laws. You know, they'd probably be quite sensible when it comes to wild camping. But that's a really strong example of a way that generally we have quite a strong rule within our culture. It's different to English culture because in English culture they just say stay off our land most of the time. And it's very, very different to Indian or Pakistani or a lot of African cultures, places like that. They have a very different attitudes.
Well, I can tell you here, Robin, that it is like that in Canada, and there is garbage blowing down my street, and there is terrible driving, and it is because there are like 2 million people brought in the last couple of years. So that's the reality that it was way more integrated before when there was lower immigration. Now, another problem you might not have in Scotland is that there is not as much room to congregate for large immigrant communities, whereas here there are entire cities now that have become either, you know, mass amounts of Chinese or Indian people. So that has become, just a very strange, rubbing up against each other where you enter an area and then all of a sudden it literally feels like you're in a different country. But of course, all the benefits of your own country are offered to people who are not assimilating. So that's a very strange thing to experience. Now, the difference between Scotland and England, I want to ask you about. There is historically an assumption that you guys do not get along. Do you go down to Newcastle and say, "Wow, these Geordies are disgusting"? Do you go down to Liverpool and say, "Wow, I hate your accent"? What's the relationship now? If is a 20-year-old going down to watch a footy match, soccer game, getting in fights? Are we still fighting in the streets before on Saturday mornings, or is it easier these days? Is it more friendly, more similar?
Okay, so a few things. I think generally it doesn't come to the point of violence. If you're looking at in Scotland, who do we fight with? It's normally the Catholics fighting with the
Mm-hmm.
Protestants, and
Mm-hmm.
I have a mother from one and a father from the other. So I never, because of that, actually took much interest in football. I don't know if you know, in Scotland, almost all football that's most popular is split over whether you're Catholic or Protestant.
Celtic and Rangers.
Yeah, Celtic and Rangers are in Glasgow, and then in Edinburgh it's Hibs and Hearts. But
Hmm.
most people in Edinburgh and around Scotland, they either support Celtic or Rangers. So Celtic's Catholic, Rangers is Protestant. Like the clash with English is generally quite a passive dismissiveness and dislike of the snobbery associated with English.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that a lot on a personal level. Obviously, I talked about uh, the elderly man who I know who's experienced in a lot of really negative ways because the arts communities, whether that's dance, whether that's bagpipes, whether that's storytelling, bagpipes less so, but certainly the dance and the storytelling is mostly are really affected by the way that English power in the arts community is really affecting that and having a negative impact on the culture. In a personal sense, a way that I see um, English culture affecting it is when I was in Edinburgh, a lot of English people from Newcastle would come up that were just sort of young lads in their 20s and 30s on a night out. And when I would play the bagpipes, I'd get a lot of shit off of the English lads, especially around like October, November. So I was busking, like playing bagpipes on the side of the street with a box in front of me. It's like, I talk about it's like high class begging, you know, but basically performing for the tourists. Um, and I would get like these drunk guys that are English guys, and they just like hate the bagpipes and like the symbol of Scottish culture. Sometimes they'd be there for football games and stuff like that. So that was one of the few times I saw them actually getting aggressive, and I had sometimes they would come up and try and mess with my bagpipes, and I had maybe shouting matches. I never quite had a fight with any of them, but I know bagpipers that have done, and that's one of the few instances where I've heard of actually a Scottish versus English cultural violent fight. You know.
Yeah, these Geordies coming up with their eyebrows and their ripped jeans, and they're yelling at you with their tans.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You have the
Exactly.
picture.
That's unfortunate. What do you think is going to be the next move for you? Do you want to like sort of partition this into a career? Do you have a different plan? Am I being too much of a father right now? You're in Australia right now. What are you doing moving forward?
Yeah, so in Australia, because one of the primary things which has stopped me from being able to continue was just finances.
Mm-hmm.
I spent, I think, in Canadian dollars, it's probably, I think it's about 40,000 Canadian dollars this year on traveling because I went to a lot of countries. Most people don't even realize how many countries I went to because a lot of them I was there for just a day. I was like doing transits through a lot of countries and things, just trying to see as many places as possible and test out different things there. And by the end of that trip, I had a pretty conclusive idea of what I need to do going forwards to create really consistent content.
Mm-hmm.
I was in India. Most of the content which has gone viral, I shot in India over the course of 3 days. So I was in Mumbai one day. I flew that night to Jaipur. I was there for about half a day before I got the bus to Delhi, and I shot lots of content there. All this extreme slums content shot in Delhi, and then I flew back to Scotland via Qatar.
Tell us more
So
about what it's like in India. Sorry,
yeah, yeah,
what
yeah.
that is like just going through. Obviously, it's probably disgustingly hot compared to where you live in the world. And what is the culture like? Like, someone I think you could move to. Japan seems really nice. You could probably move to Sweden, and Australia you're in now, and it wouldn't be bad. It would be different, but it wouldn't be that bad. Do you think that anyone from the West, white or black, would move to India and be like, this is a fine place to live?
I think you have to be a certain type of character because I do know of people that have done that, and I've seen videos recently of expats. There was one guy who started a multi-million taco business in India, and he just loves the chaos of it. He found Western life too mundane. If
Hmm.
you're a person who likes cleanliness, um, if you're a person who, appreciates maybe the calmness of British society, or even you could say American society, which is calm relative to British society. I've not got so much experience of Canada, but I would not recommend it. Also, generally, if you're a white British woman, I would say in most cases it's going to be a pretty difficult deal for you to go there. Um, for a lot of reasons I've heard from white travelers who have been there.
Did you witness a lot of the amazing and culturally enriching foot preparing of food?
Um, I think I'm not sure where a lot of the street food videos are recorded. I didn't see anything that
That's good.
horrific. Some of those things, I wonder if some of it was a setup actually sometimes. But I've seen how extreme they are, so I'd not be too surprised if that was
Okay.
the actual case.
So do you
There
think you'll?
was
Yeah, go ahead.
there was like restaurants we'd go around the back of, and we'd see very uncleanly conditions. And I think one thing I wouldn't trust in India is the oil. So the second time I came back there, I pretty much just ate salads because I really, even though I didn't trust the water, I trusted much less the oil and the curries that they have there. In the restaurants, it's very different to home cooking, by the way. Home cooking is much cleaner, much healthier in India. It's less sweet, but it just doesn't have that much oil. In at home they use ghee as well, which is sort of this like purified butter, right? But they in the restaurants they also just use whatever oil, and I think it's filth. It's days old, and their curries just have so much oil. That's why I just had salads the last time that I went there for 3 days because I'd really recommend avoiding that.
So do you think you'll end up in places maybe like Thailand or something like that, or other countries, maybe Philippines or Vietnam? Other countries that have a large amount of immigration to the West. Do you have any plans like that?
I do, yes.
Nice.
So I was in Thailand and Vietnam just there on my trip. I could name. I think I went to over 20 different countries.
Wow.
And also in the United States, I went to 25 different states. And most people haven't even seen much content from America because I
Hmm.
didn't shoot much in the way of videos there. But in terms of what my plans are, my next plan target is definitely Africa. So I
Interesting.
went there when I was younger. I went to Tanzania and Kenya when I was younger with my mum and my brother. So I plan to go to Tanzania first to touch base and visit some friends that were there, and then hopefully to Uganda and Rwanda because Uganda because of the filmmaker Isaac Nabwana who's there who makes really cool mental videos. You've probably seen these really low budget African films. They're mostly being by Isaac Nabwana, which are Wakaliwood in Uganda. And Rwanda, because it's an up and coming African country, is being
Hmm.
dubbed the Singapore of Africa. And I'm pretty interested to see what that's like. It's very clean. And I think that might be a great contrast, right? Because people said, go to a Muslim country, and then I went to Qatar, right? People say, go to an African country. I want to go to Rwanda and see what the opposite is like. And hopefully, I've not looked into visa conditions. Also, do Zimbabwe because of the whole, Rhodesia thing. I think
Hmm.
that'd be a particularly interesting case because that's really being talked about a lot in relation to my content right now.
Wow. I'd have to imagine. Have you faced any criticisms yet from this? You mentioned Rhodesia. That's forbidden, of course, to mention that. It's forbidden to be Scot. It's so strange to me that the English want to stop you from using your accent and using having bagpipes and this stuff. It because you guys are so from. I know it's so different, but from the outside looking in, that would be like we don't get along with the French in Quebec like completely well, but there's no like intrusion like that. Don't you think that's strange that it's kind of coming from within in a sense that the English want to put put a stop to some of that?
I have a lot to say about that one. But what I'll say that's most key is that the English have done this to so many countries before,
Mm,
right? And it is very similar to the colonial methods that they use, sometimes more effectively than others. And I would say Scotland is relatively effective. It's not that effective compared to China. Um, what China did to homogenize their culture over the period of about 5,000 years was far, far, far more effective. And they made a very homogenous country that largely doesn't want to split. They have a lot of differences in a lot of different regions and they speak in very different ways, but they largely still consider themselves Chinese. And most Scottish people wouldn't tell you they were British.
mm-hmm.
They wouldn't tell you that unless there was some sort of understanding gap about where Scotland was located. And at the same time, they have like their foot in so many different things in Scotland for a long time. They have been the most powerful and wealthy people in Scotland because the most wealthy people in Scotland have been in bad situations where they go to other countries, right? Like lots of the famous inventors of Scotland, like the richest Scottish person ever was Andrew Carnegie, right? Who goes to America and makes all of his money in America. And so you've got this historical like historically continuous situation where the richest people have been English people. So Scottish people move towards that. You're more likely to be hired for a job if you're Scottish, if you're English than if you're Scottish in Scotland. is still that way just because of the way that we perceive what it means to be a good communicator is based on like American and English perception of that term. So you can't really move past that.
Yeah, I knew I could get some of that out of you. Some of that anti-English out of you. So
Yeah,
the
yeah.
other question I had in there was have you faced any backlash for doing this? Because you kind of made it clear. I don't think somebody could put it more kindly the way you feel about your country than you are putting it. But I still imagine, has there been any backlash about this, or do you think we've come past that? And any backlash from people that you know?
Yeah, yeah, it came much closer and much more personal and close to home than I
Mm.
expected any of this would quickly and dramatically. And that's a big part of the reason that I'm not in Scotland trying to make my money right now, because I actually made, contrary to what people might imagine from somebody who stands on the side of the street and plays bagpipes with a box in front of him, I actually made pretty good money back in Scotland. But making that money, to explain, like the busking community is quite an odd thing, but the bagpiping busking community in Edinburgh is a very unique thing. It was founded on people that were ex-military and had the full attire from being in
Hmm.
the military, and also were, the military are literally based in the castle, which is the central tourist location. So they needed to go about 20 meters, 100 meters, 200 meters probably, about 200 meters, let's say, down the Royal Mile, which is the main street in Edinburgh, from the castle to the perfect place to perform bagpipes. So they basically formed this community of people who would take turns on these spots and play bagpipes there and make much better money than most people would ever expect in this place. And what you kind of have now is like a militia, pretty much, of these guys who are pretty violent sometimes, and certainly when it comes to people who step out of what they want people to be like.
Hmm.
And when I stepped out of that by getting them far too much attention on social media, they were having people go up to them like with the phone and say, "Do you know this racist bagpiper from India?" Tourists from all over the world, and they don't like the sort of perception that's coming onto them and the attention that they're getting at it. And there's elements, I think, of jealousy and things there. And basically, I can't play them anymore.
That's awful.
So that's the being the main one. That's the main reason I'm here. There's been other issues with attention that's came onto, my family, my friends, students. I've heard about student colleagues like starting rumors about me and stuff just because they don't want to be associated with the racist bagpiper guy. If you read the comment section of a video where my content has been reposted by a Scottish bagpiper who is not affiliated with anything political, but his audience are all Scottish people, the comments are the most outwardly, like I would say, probably 90% negative,
Hmm.
far more negative than any of my videos or other videos using my content.
That's wild that there isn't a desire to stand up for you, who is you're quite literally standing up for what they're doing by saying this is something that we want to preserve. I think where it would be like, if I'll relate it to Canada, somebody goes and brings hockey to another country and starts playing hockey in front of people, and people gather around and see it. The hockey players over here say, "How dare you do that? You're misrepresenting us." You're sort of spreading Scottish culture in a way to say that this is what we need to preserve about our people. And I think you have a wonderful history there that you just explained a lot about with in just the busking in the castle, which would be way different from what it would be here, which would be mostly homeless people and people doing drugs. There are people that pretend to play a violin with a speaker and they're just playing it from their phone. I don't know if
Oh,
you're
we have
aware
that
of it.
too.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
We have gypsies here to pedal us in Scotland too.
Okay.
Um,
Since you brought up gypsies, there's a lot of them in Australia, I've noticed.
But yeah. Just to come back to your question, which was about why are Scottish people reflecting on it badly,
Hmm.
and it's very simple. Stephen Fry really hit it right on the head, and I think I'll never express anything as eloquently or precisely as he will. Neither will most people. But what he said was that inherently within British culture, we have a lot of things that stop us from wanting to show pride in our culture, that stop us from raising a Union Jack, that would stop English people from raising a Union Jack on many occasions, because that type of pride is sort of looked down upon in the way that we have to almost play things down within our culture. It's very much like that. And most Brits that didn't play things down, I think they hit the boats and went across the ponds to take on an adventurous and proud lifestyle in America, and they're waving American flags now. So I think most people, especially in the States, I think there's a lot of it in Canada too, find it quite absurd that people would respond in this way. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not about what I'm saying, because if you ask somebody in Scotland whether they're proud of their culture, they'll say yes, of course they will. It's about the way that I'm saying it. It's about the fact that I'm being aggressive and I'm being loud. I'm being proud of it in a different country, and that's why they see it as this almost Naziist, extreme, white supremacist narrative. Is because I'm saying it in an aggressive and passionate way in a different country that they deem as associating much more strongly with an extremist than a Scotch, because British people aren't like that. We're not like that. And that's one of the things that I would say, if we were to look at our own culture and criticize our culture and say, what do we need to change? Is, if we want to keep our culture the way that it is and not have it changing to places like um, urban Canada, and a lot of other places in the world are starting to become like, or certain parts of England where they have the gangs, because Hindu and Muslim and Jewish are all separate and then they fight each other. Then we have to say, well, actually, yeah, we have to be proud of our own culture, and we have to look at it and say we are proud in that kind of loud way that we're so embarrassed to say. And that's a really hard thing for Scottish people to get over, and a lot of English people as well. Scottish people more than English people.
You said you were taught bagpipes by whom was it?
I actually had many bagpipe
Okay.
teachers. Yeah.
So what
So
inspired you to take
I
it up?
started when I was 10, and I started
Okay.
learning through the public education system for a very nice low cost, which I was delighted by, because I was so enchanted by the instrument from a very young age. When I would see bagpipers, particularly buskers, I remember just being enchanted by it, and I was delighted. I got, it was about £2 a lesson, so that's like $4 Canadian per lesson. It's very affordable.
Enchanting is a good word because when I get the UK channels here, and when you turn on the Scottish Gaelic channel, it's very much like you're listening to woodland elves singing, because there's always singing on that channel. On, I forget, what
Yeah,
is it,
BBC
Alba or
Alba.
something? Yeah, that's
Alba,
right.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And the translation is wild. It's often about something in the woods, I feel like. Well, Robin, I think that if you come to Toronto, I'm happy to film for you, to spread your wonderful culture here. And I want to tell you before I let you go that this, I'll use the word attack on your culture, where people are telling you, even from inside Great Britain, to not do these things that are Scottish, or to not embrace your own Scottish culture. I would like you to know that that is not said to us here. That is mostly not said in America either, except by communists. So I want you to know you are under a unique attack, where people are telling you not only must you accept these foreign cultures, which we most certainly are told here, but you are also being told that there's something wrong with your own culture, which is not something we really see here. Here we are told that embracing Canadian culture is wonderful, but it also gets molded in with, actually, your Canadian culture is other people's cultures. But nobody's going to be mad at you for speaking stupidly about hockey, or maple syrup, or wearing plaid in Canada. So I want you to know that this attack on what you're doing is very unique, and I think that you're going to come up against, or already have come up against, very unique roadblocks in which you are going to have to do what you're doing, probably even more so, to defend what you're doing, in terms of protecting what you see as Scottish or Gaelic culture, with the bagpipes, with the accents, with even being different from English speaking people in England. So I want you to know that it's not right, is what I'm trying to say, is that there's something strange going on there, where they're telling you not only accept all this other stuff, but also you can't have what you are. I think that's very strange, even in the politics that we're seeing right now. So is there anything else you'd like to say to the audience, or anything else you'd like me to include, about what you're doing?
Just give me 30 seconds to think about that.
That's
That's okay.
fair. It's a lot of racism going through his head right now. A lot of things about having red hair. A lot of possibly building of walls around Newcastle, I think. How far of a drive is that to the
You know,
border?
my hometown. My hometown. I'll not say exactly what the name of the town is, is actually by like longitude 5 miles south of Newcastle.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's actually obviously it's much further west than Newcastle, but it's actually 5 miles south because I'm right down on the southernmost coast of Scotland.
What happened to those people, Robin? What happened to? Why are they like? My English friend. I don't know if you know who Lewis Brackpool is, an English reporter. He's just, he's not the biggest fan of the. I don't know what you call a person from Newcastle besides the Geordies specifically.
Geordies.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, he's not sure what happened either.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I think there's a funny thing. There's a funny thing with Scotland, right? Where wherever I go, people often tell me, "Oh, you don't sound like Billy Connolly." It's like you don't sound Scottish, and they have this idea that the Scottish accent is the Glaswegian accent.
Okay.
Here's a rant, right? People think that the Scottish accent is the Glaswegian accent. Glasgow, I think Greater Glasgow has over 1 million people. Okay, and the Scottish population is about 5 million. It fluctuates a little bit over time. So they account for a very large portion of Scotland, but a very small area of Scotland. And when you don't have an accent that sounds Glaswegian, which includes Greater Glasgow, people think you don't sound Scottish, right? So if you sound like you're from Scotland, if you're from Scotland, you have a Scottish accent, but they can understand you, then they'll say to you that you don't sound Scottish. The the funny thing is that's basically like if you consider an English accent to be the Birmingham accent or the Manchester
Mm-hmm.
or the Liverpudlian accent or the Geordie accent, right? Which are all like the most difficult accents to understand in England because the most difficult accent to understand in Scotland is the Glaswegian accent. So it's quite a weird thing where people think
Yeah.
of the Scottish accent as being the absolute most difficult accent, and people think of the British or the English accent as being RP, like the easiest, most straightforward, most perfected accent that you could possibly imagine.
I would encourage you to call those people stupid. Because that just takes
It's
like
just a general opinion. It's like a passive thing from most like travelers and backpackers. I'm staying in a backpackers hostel right now, by the way. Been staying here for over a month, and it's pretty great. I've got like a cool community of people, but they're mostly like Europeans, and it's very cheap to be in the city centre. But um, like almost everybody there, their perception of the Scottish accent is usually the Glasgow accent or something close to it because they've seen memes of it online or they've met a Glaswegian person.
they need to watch a few more movies, listen to watch a few more sports, because that just to me, I always go back to this, Robin. When people are making historical arguments that are very short-sighted, I tell them even a 13-year-old who played Rome Total War or something would know more about this than you know, or one of these video games, Age of Empires or something like that, one of these older games, they will know even more than that. And if the person doesn't have at least that base of knowledge, it's very hard to understand historical, I guess, historical happenings in relation to the British Isles or anything in Western Europe. It makes it pretty obvious and clear when you just read a little bit about it. So I would encourage you to be meaner, is what I'm saying. Just be a lot
That's
meaner.
not advice I've received so far, to be honest.
That's fair.
um, yeah, I think I'll try and keep the most positive image of my culture though that I can. I think a lot of people back home already perceive me as being pretty mean right now.
Well,
So
you're very
the only way I
nice.
can fight that narrative is by being louder and prouder and making sure that the story I have out there is my narrative and it's very clear. It's not the Guardian's narrative. It's not the Sun's narrative. It's not
Hmm.
Turning Point's narrative either. You know, because I think a lot most left wing people that I know that were angered by it in the UK, they saw that Turning Point had responded to it if they reposted my video. You know, Turning Point,
Yeah,
the
for
the
sure.
they reposted it and that polarized them against me.
Did they have
Because
your
the moment you become in
permission?
that category, it's just you're out of bounds.
Did they have your permission to post that video?
Oh no. They didn't even credit me. I think I actually had a watermark on that video on Turning Point. I believe they covered the watermark.
Get
So they didn't
familiar
even
with
not didn't
copyright
even not credit
claims.
with me. They
That's
went to the
ridiculous.
effort to cover the watermark. I think that was Turning Point who did that. So
Get familiar with
um,
copyright law in different countries. I have a friend who's actually battling in court with in Times of India over doing the exact same thing that you're saying that was done. The take your video, remove the watermark, and just be like, "What happened? I don't know. I don't know why." We don't know where we got this video. I don't agree with that. And yes, it is important for you to differentiate yourself like that, because if I don't know who else has interviewed you or reached out to you, but if I'm doing this, then I believe the powers that be will be looking to bring you onto their side and make it, Bagpipe Kid, he's far right, and we're taking we're taking him in. He belongs to us now. So just be careful, okay? I'm your father now.
Well, thank
Older
you very
brother.
much for that dad advice. I appreciate it.
All right, Robin, I appreciate everything you've said. Keep up the good fight. Let me know if you ever come into this region. I'll definitely do my best to help you out,
I
okay?
will. What state in Canada is it in here, by the way?
I live about 30 minutes from Toronto.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, so we could go
Yeah,
anywhere
I've got
around there.
friends in
Plenty.
Michigan, so there's a good chance I might be um, nearer sooner than you may expect.
Fair enough.
So
I appreciate you, man. Keep up the good work. Don't become Australian. Don't adopt Aussie rules football is my only request.
I won't. I won't. I don't watch football, to be honest, anyway.
Okay, that's fair.
But I think I'm pretty strongly sticking in my culture, if that wasn't apparent already.
No, of course. We've got a. I don't even know. Do you care about any sports?
Um, I mean, I played tennis growing up, but I
That is
didn't.
pretty Scottish, yeah.
Um, not really. I think it's quite English actually.
What?
But golf's.
Golf?
We have golf. We've got curling, and we've got um, that one in the Highlands. I never even
I don't know what that is.
shinty. You don't know shinty? It's a
No,
bit
is
like
that the
hockey.
log throwing?
No, that's not really a team sport. That's just that's toss the caber. We call that.
Hmm.
It's every Highland game, every bagpipe competition. Most bagpipe band competitions are at Highland Games. They always have toss the caber at those. I really recommend going to one if you're in Scotland. You have them in Canada too. Actually,
I'm
I
sure they
went to one in
do.
Canada. I went to a Highland Games when I was in Canada, like a
Yeah,
month ago.
I've heard of that. I've just never been. Um,
Yeah,
but it turns out I have so much to learn about Scotland. I,
I'd recommend it for a bit of cultural enrichment.
and can you please send me cultural? I'm knee deep in cultural enrichment, my friend. And on every angle of my street. Please send me these posts where people have the negative reactions. I think that'll be interesting to show people.
Yeah, yeah. I'll send you. The main one was Bagpipes Corner. Actually, I got restricted on Instagram recently. I couldn't message you. I found a loophole where I could send a reel to you, and then write something with that reel, and then just delete the reel, and that's why I messaged back to
Oh
you.
wow!
Before,
But
but
you
I
haven't
actually
said
have
anything,
been.
have you? Like mean?
What happened was I took a screenshot of comments that were all Scottish comments on a
Hmm.
Scottish channel that reposted my video. I think one of them involved me saying the C word, right? Involved the person saying the Z word, but I just screenshotted the comments that were allowed on Instagram and posted it to my Instagram broadcast channel. And immediately, like, within a couple seconds, Instagram algorithm picked it up, wiped it off, said you're restricted, just like that. So it was
That's
from
ridiculous.
sending a screenshot that I took of a comment section to my broadcast channel of people talking shit about me. you know, they were chatting shit on me. That was, oh,
Zuckerberg
well,
is just how the Zuckerberg Lizard Corporation works. There's no rhyme or reason at all.
the
the,
lizards.
li- the
Thankfully, I'm
lizard
verified,
people.
so I'm gonna get it sorted. I'm back and forth with them, but in
The
2 days
lizard
it comes off
people?
anyway.
Um, David Icke is coming for you now. By the way, do you know who that is?
Sorry?
Do you know who David Icke is?
No, I don't know who that
Oh,
is.
okay, you're gonna have to look into that. I would call him the grandfather of lizard people. He is like the first
Okay.
person I've ever heard. He's English. The first person I've ever heard speak about the government's made up of lizard people theory. And
All
then when
right.
you talk
Okay.
about him, you'll get in a lot of trouble too from conspiracy theorists. So look forward to that.
Yeah, I'm experiencing more of those. I've actually had some like crazy celebrities and relatives of politicians and stuff reach out to me recently that are like super deep into conspiracy theories.
Hmm.
And it's like they literally got their fingers around the top celebrities and politicians. It's like, how have you got this conspiracy theory? You're literally friends with this person and that person. It's like,
Yeah, it's boredom. I think when it starts getting to the certain like along with everyone who has seen conspiracies come true, when it goes beyond, You know, some people are always looking for the next thing. Space is fake is one of my favorite ones. Look, I got so much to teach you.
I think you and I could have a 4 hour conversation or something in Canada if I
Yes,
can.
for
Yeah,
sure,
for sure, for sure. Yeah, yeah,
for sure. And
yeah.
then
But
over a nice bowl of curry.
curry. Yeah, I've not had a curry since India. Uh,
That's
since Korean food, Korea, I've kept having Korean food. I
mm.
love Korean food. It's like the best stuff. I've been meeting Korean food people in the hostel here and having so much of their delicacy. I crave it
So
like
did you
mentally.
go
I'm
to
not
any
here.
of those Korean street food videos that I've seen where they're making like these insanely unhealthy sandwiches, breakfast sandwiches?
Yes, so like um Korean food has changed a lot recently, and it's quite weird that they've gone to the extreme of having really terrible stuff. And most people in the West now know Korean food as being like Korean fried chicken, which is not really Korean food. But like, I think the really good thing is you can access really good Korean food really easily. If you pretty much go around any corner and find a slightly ghetto-looking Korean place. In Korea, unlike India, ghetto doesn't mean unhygienic. It means it's run by a grandma who has
Hmm.
held the same traditional food for the last 800 years, and it's really good. It's really nice. It's like lots of ferments, usually unlimited sides. You can just keep getting them. It's great for hungry people. Lots of meat, lots of vegetables, good stews, and usually almost always big semi sphere of rice.
Yeah.
It's like really pretty similar in most places, but like really good stuff. It's pretty easy to find it. My Korean friend showed me if you just go around the corner. And then on the high streets in places like Hongdae, where I was staying in Hongdae, it's a famous area in Seoul. I don't know if you've seen like the Hongdae memes. On the high street, they have all this like stuff that you shouldn't see. That's just terrible, deep fried, really high carb,
Yeah.
really high sugar. And like the weird thing is like most Koreans are lactose intolerant. I think
Hmm.
like 80 or 90% of Koreans are lactose intolerant. But like Koreans, young Koreans, especially young Korean girls, like teenagers and students, have this obsession with cheese, and they put so much cheese on everything.
Yeah, I've
You
seen that.
know, it's so weird. And then they get candidiasis. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's like
No.
this sort of growth of thrush in your gut and on your tongue and everything. There's like this extreme reaction to having all this sugar and yeast that's in cheese
Jeez.
and deep fried food and bread. So it's,
Wow.
yeah,
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 it
it's,
looks
it's
like it
pretty
would be a
extreme.
problem if you were eating that more than
But
once like
because
a
they're
week.
historically so used to this really amazing, like perfect monk food,
Hmm.
you know, and their parents probably couldn't even afford meat, so they're eating vegetables, or their parents were eating super healthy stuff. Unlike Scotland, like historically, poor Scottish people ate such unhealthy food. You know, we ate oats and mashed potatoes, just mush of carbs. Koreans did pretty well for themselves. When they were poor, they ate very little, but you know, they had good vegetables and things.
Hmm.
I think they probably helped their intelligence.
Or yeah, something did.
Yeah, but you want to close up, man. I'll let you
No, it's
go.
cool, but I was going to
Yeah,
ask
yeah.
you, are there as many Korean men wearing makeup as I think there are?
Um, Yeah, young Koreans, like my age of Koreans, are influenced by K-pop a lot, and they're becoming quite feminine. It's weird because it contrasts a lot with. They also have a lot of the military culture, and I
Mm-hmm.
met so many guys that were late 20s and 30s that have been through their service, and it's really they're the toughest minds of people that I've met. Really, really hardcore people, because if you're mildly good in the service, they put you through to the Marines pretty quickly,
Mm-hmm.
and then they go through this really hardcore mind training stuff, and they're really really tough people with really insane business mindsets. And it's weird like to contrast that with the really feminine Korean guys as well, and they're all being put through this really crazy hard working culture with like the universities that SKY is like the top three universities are like harder in some ways than Harvard to get into. So
Hmm.
like super super challenging educational environment there where people are working so hard. You know, people are usually they end up having to work so hard at school. Their school days are super long, way longer than in the West, and they it's pretty normalized to get 5 or 6 hours of sleep at night as well.
Jeez.
So it's a
Just
super
gotta
extreme culture.
just gotta blow off some steam and put on some lipstick, I guess. Get your
Yeah,
sugar
yeah, and
sandwich and
sing
put on
some
your
K-pop
lipstick.
songs.
Hmm. Happy,
Yeah,
happy.
exactly.
Everything's
Yeah.
about joy.
But
Did you go to
in China
Japan?
too. they're scared of it. And I didn't do Japan. In China, they're scared about it. In China, they've been like taking down K-pop stuff for years now, and like trying to take back on that because it's the word is feminizing their culture. But
Mm-hmm.
their live selling is taking over. Their biggest live seller is a woman, but the biggest male live seller is a man who puts on makeup and reviews makeup, and they're
Oh
really
wow.
embarrassed about that. I think they tried to take him down as well, as they often do with people who get to the top in their sort of communist way. But
Take
there's a
him
man
down.
who like puts on lipstick and sells live beauty products to
Take him
women
down
mostly, I
before they
think.
get Dylan Mulvaney.
But maybe you should consider. I think it's the best way to get high CPMS is to get female audience and start putting on
It's
lipstick.
true, yeah. It's once a week. I'm just gonna. I won't mention it at all. I'll just come on here in full makeup and just be like, "Well, what's the latest in the deportation numbers?"
Yeah, full James Charles,
Yeah,
just
exactly.
gradually go in that direction, and you will see your female audience go up. Because my audience is like, it gone from 80% in the last month to 90% male.
Hmm.
And my friend, my Korean buddy, who I've been traveling with, who's like sort of Scottish Korean, he's from Korea, but he grew up in sort of grew up in Scotland in the public or like private school culture to become like an elite musician. But he has a like 75% female audience on
Yeah.
his Instagram page.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty cool like for CPMs.
It's pretty cool, man. I think I've always floated around 85 to 90 as well, which is I think it's become more during the COVID years, there's definitely a lot more women who are voicing their opinion in that, and I think there is a fluctuation there where it was almost half and half. But is there? I know you're in Australia, and my view of Australia is now completely skewed by their television shows for the worse. But is there a lot of women in Scotland that are getting these facial injections and facial surgeries that appear to be so prevalent in Australia? And then I like to I talk with my English friend about the average English woman these days. You know, she's a little bit yellow. She's got her pants pulled up really high, her yoga pants pulled up, yellow from the fake tanning. Is there how's the culture treating the women of Scotland right now, or like how is the cultural online influence treating the women of Scotland? Is it an issue as you see for young men or women right now in your age group?
So I would say modern, particularly urban culture in Scotland is very, very similar to English culture. However much sort of like the mainstream people might in Scotland might want to say, "Oh, I'm no English, I don't want to associate with them bams down south, because I'm pure down with the folk and all that." People in Scotland are like the trends that they have in Glasgow and Edinburgh. The young people in their 20s is pretty similar to England, and
Mm.
it's the yoga pants pulled up, the Botox lips are pretty big nowadays. They like the Botox, and generally wearing clothes that I consider to be quite repulsive sometimes.
Yeah.
and I've seen some things in Scotland that I really wish I haven't seen. And most of them are skirts above the pant line,
Mm.
and and Scottish women aren't. Unfortunately, if you do want to visit Scotland, they aren't all that beautiful. They aren't all that
Wow.
amazing. So
Wow.
so sometimes it is something that you don't want to see when you come there. you
Hello,
know,
Robin. Fashion your drink. What is that
yeah,
though with the
I can start a
Botox?
fight with that if that if
Yeah,
that, that this gets clipped.
you are.
Is this this is a podcast that's going up, right? So
Yes.
yeah, yeah. If that gets clipped, man, Scottish women are going to be uh, coming after me with knives and skiing doos.
What is it though? Do guys your age, because this wasn't a thing when I was 20. The like obviously some girls had injections in their face, but do guys your age say like, why are you doing this? This isn't attractive?
Yeah, I think most guys wouldn't outwardly say that it's attractive. I think at the same time, getting that surgery, girls are probably doing it because they've seen validation. And I think probably primarily where that validation is in nightclubs and in bars. So when they're going out for a night out and they're getting drunk, and maybe even on social media, I don't know, but certainly like when they're getting drunk, they probably get more attention if they have bigger lips and more makeup. Like that's why in the UK you see this like super extreme makeup as well, like the really harsh eyebrows and the really
Yeah.
like lots of fake tan. It is because I think that stands out in nightclub. It actually looks a lot. like I just thought about this right now. There's probably somebody who's written about this, but it's the same as old theatre makeup, which people would wear so that they could be seen
Interesting.
in the low theatre light in
Hmm.
darkness. Actually, it's kind of the same. It's very, very similar.
Except that would
It's
be
almost
like
the
the
same,
old
so they can be seen
masks with
like
the
in night.
frowns.
It's like you see it in a nightclub, right?
Yeah.
Like probably they get a lot more validation, and they like get more Scottish, chav boys to come home with
Those
them when they.
dirty chavs.
It's
What's
quite
the
a good
drinking
accent,
age in
actually.
Scotland? Oh, you want to hear? I've got so many more accents for you.
Have you been there?
No,
Really? Okay.
just all from.
Um,
It's all internalized. All the. I don't know what to describe it as. The dirty chavs, lad.
yeah,
The
most accents I hear people do are pretty embarrassing. There's usually some attempt at mimicking the caricature Mel Gibson accent, which is like a
uh,
weird
who's also
caricature of an
Australian.
Edinburgh mixed with a Glaswegian mixed with a Highlander accent mixed with a I don't know whatever Mel Gibson is.
He's
So
Australian.
yeah, but he's got a funny way of like the every when I hear people do Scottish accent, they almost always do the same like Scotland. They do that when they say
Scotland.
freedom.
What you doing in Scotland, lad? But lad's really the
Yeah,
Liverpool
that's
thing, I feel like. But I think the easy way to differentiate it is rolling the R's. That's how I differentiate it. If someone's got something, if somebody's confused, you guys roll the R's, whereas the Irish and the English do not.
we roll our R's less than most people get the idea we do. And I think we sort of do it in the ways that they don't imagine. Because the thing is, English people don't actually, in like proper English with RP, they don't actually say R's, right? Which is a sort of quite a funny thing.
Hmm.
English people, there's a lot of reasons I actually think the Scottish accent is better in some ways. Like we pronounce some words slightly, some syllables slightly more. Like the sound I think in Scottish we actually say it a little bit more clearly than English, right? Or some words like the word no, we just say it pretty clearly and directly, like
Yeah, I
Americans do. It's
believe
just
you were
no,
arguing with me about this earlier, and now we're back around to
an
Scots,
RP.
to
Yeah,
Australian people saying "ner."
yeah, yeah. But English people like would say oh, God, what's a good example of a word? But like corner, okay?
Hmm.
Most English people, it's not quite RP, but it's just standardized English is to say corner.
I think,
Whereas a Scottish person says corner,
yeah, that's
right? A
much
corner.
better.
It's not really, you're not saying corner. It's not like
The
corner.
corner.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the Mel Gibson, right? So
Hmm.
that's the corner, right? It's not really like rolling it. You just say it, it's the corner
I
rather
think
than
one
the
that gets
corner.
people, one that gets people for the English is Derby, where we would just say a derby.
Derby. Yeah, I'd say Derby, I suppose. But
I think Australia.
yeah,
Where are you in? What state in Australia are you in?
Western Australia. I'm in Perth because I'm trying
Yeah,
to get
right.
more work in the mines. But I've been like hacking. I've been like making phone calls every day for about a month now, and I've not got success because I made the stupid decision. I didn't get a driving license back in the
That's
UK,
good.
which is like the stupidest thing I ever didn't do. And now, like, I had no idea coming here. Don't want
Yeah,
to
because
employ
you
you for
could have
basically
just
anything if you
had.
don't have that license.
You could have just said, "Yeah, I've got a UK license," and then if as long as it's the highest level, every country's supposed to accept it. I think, but the difference I think between the more Central Australian is more like this, but in my experience, which is completely online, of Perth, Perth is a little bit more flatter. And I talked to this Australian.
Yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
plays
It's
football, and he was like, "Oh, that's pretty close. It's pretty close over there in Perth when it's flatter like this." And I don't know why that is. Maybe it's their face.
wow. You've quite an in-depth understanding, and you haven't been here either, have you?
No,
Wow, you just watch like so much social media and get so
no.
annoyed by like the TV,
I've always been. I
the
just
sports.
practice. It's sports. Yeah, a lot of it is
Okay,
sports.
sports. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's pretty interesting here comparing like the old people. I mean, I spoke to an elderly man who probably had some sort of learning difficulties, considering he just stopped and spoke to me for about half an hour and kind of in an unusual way. But like I've noticed older people here often use the term Englishman to
Hmm.
refer to just white people.
I see.
So they just say he was an Englishman. to mean he was a white person. And it took me a while, several conversations of old people here, to realize they just say Englishman to mean a white person here.
That's probably
Which is
the only
pretty
ones that
interesting.
came. The criminals that were sent there 200 years ago or whatever, they were all Englishmen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's something crazy about here that really stood out to me when I came that I hadn't directly heard about was it feels very safe, and it actually feels a lot like a lot of East Asian countries, like China. It feels like China in a lot of ways. It architecturally, the streets are similar to Korea. They got, I wish I could pick out exactly which things it is, but they have a lot of things in common with Korea, generally in the feeling that the streets are designed, and it feels very safe. They're all very new, they're very modern, very
Hmm,
gentrified. Certainly in Sydney, Melbourne, and Perth, I can speak for it. It feels very safe, and it
that's
has
good.
that. They have a far higher ratio of police to citizens as well compared to the UK. If you go to London, this feeling is completely different.
Just African guys patrolling the streets in London. All right, before we get you in more
Yeah,
trouble, let's cut this off.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
appreciate you. Keep up what you're doing. Again, let me know if you come this way. Anything I can do to help you. And again, stop those people from stealing your videos. It's not going to stop until you start bringing action about them in
Yeah,
any
I've
way
been
you
harassing
can.
them. I've been trying to speak to them. Um, it becomes a bit like these people do have a lot of people reaching out to them that are very angry all the time, and I think they just don't deal with the ends. And maybe I need to like personally get to Charlie Kirk or something, but
You're
we'll
going to need a
see.
lawyer at some point for some of
I
these
think,
people.
yeah.
For
Well, I mean that's
in all
expensive, but
honesty, yeah, I know. But at
I
some
think I'll pay
point,
for some flights to Africa first to get some more content on the roads. Then I'll try and think about getting some revenue from social media because obviously, like what I'm doing doesn't pay at all right now.
get yourself an African
Um,
lawyer from Mozambique. I think is the best choice, and you'll pay. Okay, we have to stop me here.
So one thing that I want to add, just because I do care a lot about my culture, about Scottish culture, but also about other European cultures, because I think there's a lot of similar things being experienced by Europeans in general right now, where our culture and the way that our civilizations function are a little bit a threat. And because of that, one of my plans is definitely in the future to go around and actually go hand on experience a lot more people that are really upholding these traditions firsthand. Really understand people that are making things, that are doing art, that are creating handmade products, that are doing little things like the elderly people who inspired me to really have a love for my own culture, to continue their own culture. Because I think I'm going to see probably continually a story of many people who have struggled to maintain that and to continue that in a really authentic way that's being suppressed in a lot of our countries right now.